execute Order 66?
Yes, Lord Sidious.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie, Execute Order 66. This is going to be my Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 11 video. There were a ton of Easter eggs. They even played some footage directly from Revenge of the Sith, so we'll break it all down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Careful for spoilers. If you have not seen the episode yet, we'll do top 10 WTF and Easter eggs as we go along. So starting with number 10, the title of the episode and the music at the beginning. The title of the episode, Shattered, is a reference to the shattering of the Jedi Order by the Emperor when he executes Order 66, activating all the control chips in the clones' brains, forcing them to hunt down and kill the Jedi. Because they're hunting down Ahsoka and Darth Maul during the episode, that just confirms that it's not just the currently active Jedi that they're going after, it's pretty much any known Force user. But the Emperor didn't kill all Force users. I'll explain that in a second. Some younglings he captured and turned into his Inquisitor division, but that was a little bit different. They covered some of that during the Jedi Fallen Order video game too. The music is haunting because everyone watching the episode knows what's getting ready to happen. We know about Order 66, so the music is just there to instill this sense of dread and impending doom. Even through the first couple minutes of the episode, every time you see Darth Maul, he just senses that something is in the air. He just senses the dark side of the Force is getting so overwhelming that he knows something terrible is about to happen, and he's just waiting for it to all go down. 9. Ahsoka and Bo-Katan imprisoned Darth Maul in the last remaining special Mandalorian Jedi prison for transport back to the Jedi Temple. It's a reference to the Jedi-Mandalorian Wars thousands of years ago. They reference her sister, Duchess Satine, again, saying that she had all the anti-Jedi weapons dismantled or outlawed a long time ago. This is pretty much the last remaining relic from that era. But because we know the Mandalorian's Great Purge is getting ready to happen, we know that there's a whole bunch of other Mandalorian relics that the Empire is going to raid pretty soon. When Ahsoka references Bo-Katan becoming the new leader of the Mandalorians, that's actually a reference to what's going to happen on Star Wars Rebels in a couple years down the timeline, where she becomes the leader of her people. They reunite, and Sabine Wren's going to give her the Darksaber. Right now, the Darksaber is actually still on Dathomir, left there by Darth Maul. It will show up next on Star Wars Rebels. Number 8, the Jedi Council moves against Palpatine. With the war technically over, they have that scene where Mace Windu and Yoda, the rest of the council, discuss how they're worried Palpatine isn't going to give back his emergency powers he was granted by the Senate. During Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones, they sort of address this, where he slowly, bit by bit, convinces the Senate to grant him more and more decision-making power and autonomy. Then finally during Revenge of the Sith, after Anakin turns to the dark side, after they execute Order 66, he declares the Republic's going to become a new galactic empire, officially naming himself Emperor. Then they eventually disband the Senate entirely before the events of A New Hope. They sort of reference that during Episode 4. This meeting between Mace Windu, Yoda, Ahsoka, the Jedi Council is right before Mace Windu talks to Anakin about Palpatine being a Sith Lord, then them showing up ready for that big fight. They also remind you a little bit about where you are in the timeline of Revenge of the Sith when Mace Windu tells Ahsoka that they've located Grievous on Utapau, so it's right before this big Obi Wan fight. Number 7, you all probably noticed how the Republic battleship looks even more like a classic Star Destroyer the way that they filmed it during the episode. All the men are starting to look more like Imperials, the uniforms look much more classic Star Wars. The way they filmed the bridge of the battleship with the pits and the men looking up. Darth Maul's prison cell looks exactly like Leia's prison cell from the Death Star in A New Hope. Remember, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, they sort of tease the construction of the Death Star that's been happening for a while when the movie picks up, because they have most of the bones of it created. Even all the clone troopers start acting more like and looking like the classic stormtroopers. But here's the thing, actually, big Easter egg about the classic Star Wars films. Originally, George Lucas had the idea that the stormtroopers in the original movies were all supposed to be clones, but then that slowly changed because the clones all started to die from old age, being replaced by regular people during the events of the original trilogy. Like when we see Rex during Star Wars Rebels, he's actually kind of an old man. So most of the stormtroopers by A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi are actually just regular people that have been conscripted into the Empire. 6, Ahsoka and Rex's last conversation before Anakin turns to the dark side. So they're standing here on the bridge, they have this really deep conversation about how the Jedi aren't supposed to be soldiers, but Ahsoka has spent her entire life as a soldier. That's just a reference to them creating her for the Clone Wars series and how she began as a Padawan under Anakin's tutelage in the first season. Dave Filoni actually said that he and George Lucas actually had conversations about almost retconning her into Episode 2 Attack of the Clones as this young girl here, but because the ages didn't work out with the timeline, they didn't wind up doing it, just because Ahsoka at this point needed to be way older. Commander Rex gets all philosophical about the clones, reminding us that the clones are tired of the war, they're ready to retire, but they know that Darth Sidious manipulated everything from the start, the whole war, and without the war and Palpatine creating them, they wouldn't even exist. So it's this really weird moral conundrum on their part where they're happy to be alive, they want to lead normal, productive lives in the galaxy, but they were created for this really evil purpose. Then 5, things take a turn for the worse. Anakin finally turns to the dark side. They play a clip directly from Revenge of the Sith. This scene when Mace Windu is about ready to kill Palpatine and Anakin chops his arm off, allowing Palpatine to force lightning him out the window, creating 1,000 fan theories about how he secretly survived, because we never saw a body. Even Samuel L. Jackson, who loves being in these giant franchise movies, still makes jokes about how Mace Windu is still alive. So when Ahsoka is hearing Anakin's and the Emperor's voice, Mace Windu's voice, everyone crying out through the Force, it's Hayden Christensen's voice, not Matt Lanter's voice, who does the voice of Anakin on the Clone Wars series. It's Ian McDiarmid, who does the Emperor in the live-action movies. It's Samuel L. Jackson doing the voice of Mace Windu. Because they have all these characters on the Clone Wars, but it's different voiceover actors playing the characters. But it's all because they literally just copy-pasted this entire clip from Revenge of the Sith into the episode. Ahsoka is clearly shaken, doesn't totally understand what happened, she's a little confused, she just knows something terrible went down. And it's also a bit of a reference to Obi Wan's reaction to the first Death Star destroying Alderaan, when he senses all their deaths in the Force without really understanding what just happened. Then 4, it all goes down. Palpatine executes Order 66, activating all the clones. Commander Rex looks like he tries to fight it for a second, he even kills the other 2 troopers before they're able to get Ahsoka, warns her about 5s so that she can learn about the control chips, but then all the clones open up on her, including Rex. He eventually succumbs to the chip. It's pretty heartbreaking to see him turn on her right after this deep talk they just had, in knowing how long they've been friends and how all the clones in this previous episode respected her so much that they painted their helmets orange to look just like her face. Then on a dime, they all turn. It just shows you how deep the programming in those control chips goes. So 3, Ahsoka is forced to free Darth Maul and ask him for help to create a diversion. He's totally jazzed up and explains his part in all this. He was never really privy to the exact plans. He only knew that Palpatine had a plot to kill the Jedi. He didn't know about the clones until it was all going down in the moment. Like I said, through the episode, you could just see his eyes shifting around as he's sensing this all getting ready to happen through the Force. So when Ahsoka tells him to go create some chaos, it's what you're good at, and he asks her to give him a fighting chance, he's asking her to give him one of her lightsabers, and of course she's like, oh hell no, I'm not giving you one of these lightsabers. He doesn't really need it because number 2, he just tears through all those clone troopers, just like Darth Vader tearing through the rebels at the end of Rogue One. The scene of him running that gauntlet, ripping them apart savagely, is meant to be a direct reference to this Darth Vader scene. It's a great scene and a good example of how powerful the dark side can be, even though Darth Vader is way more powerful than Darth Maul. The funny parallel you guys have also probably realized between the two of them, though, is that by the time of this Darth Vader scene, he also has almost as many cybernetic body part replacements as Darth Maul. Darth Maul had been sliced in half, so his entire lower half is mechanical, but Anakin also has a lot of his body parts replaced with Sith technology. The number 1, obviously, Ahsoka is able to remove Rex's control chip, paying off the Star Wars Rebels scene in the future when Rex talks about why he didn't wind up killing Ahsoka or any of the other Jedi during Order 66. He said his control chip was removed, and then they just give us that scene here. Then he reveals the true extent of Palpatine's plan. The entire Grand Army is now hunting down the Jedi, all the clones, and it's all going to be over very quickly. Remember the Revenge of the Sith timeline. Right when this is happening is probably when Anakin is on his way to the Jedi Temple to kill all the younglings, too, for this scene. They might reference that in next week's episode just to make Ahsoka cry a little bit more. Then hopefully in the finale they'll show us his transformation into Darth Vader in some sort of Ahsoka post-credit scene after the ending of Revenge of the Sith, just to show us where she went into hiding next and sort of tee up the Mandalorian Season 2 Ahsoka stuff. If you haven't seen any of my videos, Ahsoka will be featured on The Mandalorian Season 2, played by Rosario Dawson. Live action Ahsoka, finally. Big reminder about what's happening next week too. The Clone Wars finale is actually going to be on Monday, May the 4th, because it's Star Wars Day, and they're also going to drop the first episode of that special Mandalorian series. So if you don't have Disney Plus, make sure you find a way to watch those episodes. Rick and Morty is also back this weekend too, new episodes, so I'll be doing videos for everything. As long as you have alerts enabled for my channel, you should see those videos when I post them. Everyone click here for The Mandalorian Season 2 teaser trailer, and click here for all my Star Wars Clone Wars episodes. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, I'll see you guys tonight.